Today's question reads, what about when all conventional wisdom backfires? It will happen when you aren't looking for love. Get to know the person slowly. Build trust and make sure before jumping in. And then lied to and cheated on twice. First, let me just say that I am so sorry that this has happened to you, not just once, but twice. That has to be so painful, where you did the healing and you put yourself out there again. You took that risk to trust again, and again, you were betrayed. And before I say anything else, please know that what happened to you is not a reflection of you or your worth. And also, what has happened to you in the past does not mean that that is necessarily going to be what happens to you again in the future. So this is a good question, and one that I think so many of us can relate to. And I think there's probably two separate elements that are going into this. One is kind of that pattern of it. When we're cheated on once or abandoned once, we can find that place of blaming the other person. We can say they were a jerk, they were selfish, they were narcissistic, whatever it is. And we can kind of save our self-worth. But when it happens to us again, or even a third or fourth time, then we start to wonder, what is it in us that is making this happen? And this is such a tricky balance, because on the one hand, you didn't do anything at all to make these people cheat. You cannot keep them from cheating. You did not make them cheat. On the other hand, if you find yourself repeatedly in the same pattern, if you find yourself repeatedly being attracted to the same kind of people or attracting the same kind of people, that's something to look at. What is it maybe in your past that is recreating these situations again and again? And it really is wild of how often we have to live something until we learn it. We end up going through these same situations time and time again, playing similar roles until we finally understand what's at the root of all of that, and we address that. But I think even more than that, your question is addressing that guarantee that we all wish we could have. We all want to believe that if we just find the right person, if we have the right relationship, that we have that security, that we have that certainty that everything will be okay, that this person won't cheat on us, won't abandon us. But one of the hardest things about love is there are no guarantees. There is inherent risk no matter what we do. And so even if we do all of the quote unquote right things, that doesn't mean that necessarily we're going to get the outcome that we want. And so whenever we love, we risk loss. Now, I want to dig into each of the pieces of conventional wisdom that you brought up, because even though they're rather trite and simplistic, there is a little bit of truth in each of those. So the first one said, it will happen when you aren't looking for love. And to me, the truth in this is, if you're pushing for it too hard, if you are saying, I want a person more than you're saying, I want this person, it's very easy to end up putting somebody in that role that may not fit for you. Because when we want to be partnered so badly, we're not always thinking the most clearly. And it's very easy for us then to see people as we want to see them, as that projection of our desires, rather than who they actually are. Now, of course, that also doesn't work if you are totally ambivalent about finding love and that you're not putting yourself out there. It's not just going to fall into your lap. And so really the way that it works is when you are fully engaged in your life and you are living to your fullest, that's when you tend to attract the right people and also be okay enough with how your life is going and who you are that you're not seeking somebody just in an attempt to try to complete you. The next piece of advice is get to know the person slowly. And the truth in this one is that our bodies can easily be our worst enemies when it comes to love, or in this case, limerence, which is that early obsessive infatuation and lust that we can feel at the beginning of a relationship. And if we start to make decisions or become committed to somebody when we're still in that place, we're not really seeing the entirety of the person or the entirety of the reality of life with that person. I bet for so many of us, we can think back to a time when we met somebody, and at the beginning it was like, oh my goodness, this person is everything. They are perfect and just everything is sunshine and roses. And then after a few weeks, you start to really see who that person is. And it's kind of a rude awakening of, oh, we are not compatible at all. And so that's where that getting to know the person slowly comes in. It's not a guarantee, but it does help to make sure that you're not making decisions based only on that primitive brain that kicks in the early stages. And then finally, build trust and make sure before jumping in. Oh boy, this one definitely resonates with me. I'm going to talk briefly about my relationship with my first husband. So we met when we were 15 and married quite young at 22, but at that point we had been dating for 6 years. And I thought that I knew everything about him. I thought that there would be no surprises. And so I felt so comfortable with starting a life with this man because I thought I completely knew him and could trust him. Surprise, that wasn't the case. And with this part, yes, it is important to build trust in the beginning. But really, what I've come to understand is that getting to know somebody and learning to trust somebody is an ongoing process because all of us evolve and change over time. And if you think that you get to know them in those early stages and then you're done, well, then you don't know the person that you're with now. You know the person that you were with back then, and they may not be the same anymore. And so that getting to know them and getting to trust them is something that should always be happening. And so you want to be careful to be curious about your partner at all times rather than leading with assumptions about who they are and how they will respond to things. So the conventional wisdom has some information for us, but it doesn't have everything. No matter what conventional wisdom says, you also have to listen to yourself. Now, any work that you do healing your childhood wounds or previous relationship trauma will pay dividends. But no matter what you do, there are no guarantees. And the highs of love always have the flip side of the risk of loss.